Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday morning. Welcome to Week 5 Coast to Coast College Football Pregame Show. I'm your host, Uncle Shally, and along with these two fine gentlemen above me, we're going to bring you Week 5. Great slate of action. We got a bunch of bangers today. So before we get started, as always, let me introduce you to the two men that make me look good every week. Top left corner, my Buckeye brother from another mother, Mr. Cottrell Simpson. How are you, sir?
Feeling good, My Buckeyes are back in action today. Big game, and a lot of people are, talking a little mess. They think it might be a sexy pick for Washington. The number keeps getting bet down, but looking forward to seeing a good game today.
You are correct. The Washington conspiracy theorists have come out of the woodwork the last couple of days. But before we get to that game, top right corner, Mr. West Coast, Mr. X-Pac-12, Mr. Current Big Ten, Mr. iBlack, Mr. Visiting Beaver Stadium today for a whiteout. Biggest game of the night, of the day, I guess you could say. Mr. Alex Elmore, how are you, sir?
Man, I'm doing good. It's a beautiful Saturday. I have to wait all day, unfortunately, to watch my Ducks kick off. But it's going to be well worth the wait. Lots of great action to watch while I wait for that game tonight, including the game in Seattle, Washington, with Ohio State and Washington playing. I'm telling you, man, 22 games unbeaten at home, Cottrell. You should be shaking in your boots, man. Number one offense, number one defense. Something's got to give today. I'm excited for a lot of football, but we got a lot to get into, so I won't give away too much.
There's a lot of good games today. Some that we're not really going to be able to touch on because there is 3 or 4 just insanely big matchups today for Week 5 of the season. That's pretty incredible. It's I get to have the easy week this week. Team went to Nebraska last week and won, so I get the week off this week. And you guys both have. I don't think Ohio State's going to lose, but I think they get tested a little bit today, which I think will be good for them. And then we got we got the big one tonight: whiteout, Oregon, Penn State. I think the winner probably walks into the Big Ten championship game, and the loser, might need some help. But I think that's going to be an absolute fascinating game and a fascinating environment later this evening. So, but before we get all that, as always, Alex is going to get us going here. Break the huddle. We promise we won't go as long this time. I know we've got a little heavy the last couple of weeks, but we're going to shorten it up because we got to do our justice with the previews today because there's just some really big games that are going to matter 2 months from now. So, Alex, take it away, sir.
Shotgun, DC right, flip 90, dig on the center. Ready?
All right. Well, welcome back to Break the Huddle. Like I said, it's going to be a short and sweet week. We got some basic news to cover, nothing too crazy. But we are going to start with the news of Coach Gundy being fired. We talked about this a couple weeks ago with coaches on the hot seat. He was one of them that we talked about. And unfortunately, just hours after they lost to Toledo this last week, he was unfortunately let go. After the game, he was interviewed about the position, and he was saying he was sure that he was going to be coaching Oklahoma State for the foreseeable future. Even saying that he wants to build a better program going forward. So I'm sure this news definitely caught him off guard. It didn't catch us off guard, though. What's your guys' reaction to this?
You or me, brother?
I'll go quick here because I kind of got my, jerk reaction on Wednesday. So for me here, I was definitely surprised by it. And it's not to say that it's not warranted, but it's one of those situations where when you are at a school for 21 years and you have success and you brought them to relevance, and just a few seasons ago, you were, a Big 12 championship win away from going to the 4-team college football playoff, you've earned the right to be better respected, to not get let go during the middle of a season. I think, in this case for Oklahoma State, 3 games into their season and you're 1-2 and they ultimately pull the plug on you. Like, I don't think that, that should have been something that happened. And I get it. They were, I believe, 3-9 last year. They haven't looked good this year at all. And I get it. Toledo's also a MAC school. Like, you shouldn't be losing to MAC schools, but one of those losses is Oregon. And Mike Gundy did talk a lot before that Oregon game, and he talked about the lack of funding that Oklahoma State had, and they won't spend as much as Oregon and things like that. So I'm sure that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, at Oklahoma State. You add that into the fact they haven't been having success on the football field, and I think ultimately that's how you get to your decision here. But regardless of if you fire Gundy now or you would have fired him at the end of the season, nothing is going to change here. I don't believe that there was any scenario where whoever is the interim guy now ultimately gets the full-term tag. But even if that is the case, though, you could have done that still at the end of the season. You don't get like an extra advantage for being this early and putting your name in the I need a coaching hat. So for me, I absolutely hate the move for Oklahoma State. And, if I was a coach looking for a new job, I would be like, damn, this is how they treated a guy who brought them to relevance and was there for 21 years. Like, how are they going to feel about me if this is my first job or like my first big, head coaching job, or I start to struggle for a bit if they weren't even, looking out or looking over the best interest of a guy who was there for as long as he was.
So you mentioned all the key points for me. And I agree with all of it. I think the only other thing that possibly could have happened is I don't know if there was a meeting that had, and they already told him like, hey, we're going to go a different way at the end of the year, different direction. And maybe Mike, being Mike, was like, I'm not going to lame duck this team for the rest of the year. Like, I'm out. That's the only other possible situation I could have seen that maybe happened. But if it didn't, I agree with everything you said. You can't take a guy that if we're being really honest, in the Big 12 for a long time, really overachieved, and always put a good field on the team, or a good team on the field, going up against Oklahoma and Nebraska for a while, and then obviously Texas for a long time. I was on, I'm on record, and I still think a lot of the stuff he did with Oregon, I think was taking not so subtle jabs at his administration and his boosters and his NIL, saying, we're getting passed by here. I'm going up against an Oregon roster that Dan Lanny's getting handed a $10 million check every year. And, Michigan's spending money, Ohio State's spending money, all these teams are spending money, and you want me to sit here and recruit with no money and put a winning product on the field. And that's not what college football is right now. I'm sure that ruffled a lot of feathers behind the scenes. There's probably a lot of boosters with a lot of reach and a lot of influence that did not like that. But that being said, if you want to compete, that's the world we're in now. And I think he was very upset by that. And and to your other point, I don't think this is how you treat a guy that's been there for 20 years. That, again, in my opinion, if you're asking me to categorize it, I would say overachieved. I don't think he's a bad coach. He's been very outspoken at times. We all know the famous, I'm a man press conference, but that was sticking up for one of his players. I think Mike Gundy will probably land on his feet and probably land a pretty decent job. I think he can coach, at another Power 4 school. And to Cottrell's last point, and I'll finish up here, I'm not taking this job until I have guarantees that, A, you're putting money into the program, I'm going to have money to recruit, and I would still be a little weary, like you said, to the way they just booted. I mean, I don't know that much about Oklahoma State's history, so I'm not going to say he's the greatest coach in their history, but I would assume he's at least one of them. To Cottrell's point, you just kind of booted him unceremoniously out the door 3 weeks into the season. If I'm coming in, that's not a good look for me. If I'm looking to take that job, and like I said, if you're going to tell me up front that I don't have the resources to compete against Colorado and everybody else, and and help me recruit against in a territory that is plucked all the time by all the big schools, I don't want that job. That's not a good job then. So that's where I'm at on it.
Yeah, and I do stand corrected. It was Tulsa that they lost to last Saturday, not Toledo. That is my bad. But yeah, he was the second longest tenured coach in FBS, only behind Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, who's been there since '99. It's interesting what you guys say though about his his comments about NIL and school spending. I saw a stat the other day where it was like the top eight transfer portal schools are all 30-0 combined records, and there's it straight correlates to how much each school spends. And you have teams like in your own division, in your own conference, like Texas Tech, that's the leading spender, and you're barely getting anything compared to what they are, and you expect it to compete with those guys that are throwing out wads of cash like that. It can get tough. I don't know if he coaches again, though. Not because he can't or is not able to. I just think he might be done. Kind of like, Nick Saban retired at the right time before all this NIL stuff kind of came out, even the playing field. I think he may just kind of ride off into the sunset, call it a day. He's up there in age. He's done a lot in his career. I think he may retire. If anything, maybe he'll take a coordinator job. But shoot, take the rest of the college football season off, my man. Go sit on the couch and watch some football for the rest of the year and get your thoughts together. But it is sad. We did call this a couple weeks ago, though, so I can't say I'm too surprised. We'll keep an eye on the Oklahoma State job. And if there's any names that leak for that head coaching position, obviously we will talk about that. Anything else we want to talk about Coach Gundy getting let go before we move on to some ACC news?
I was just going to say real quick here that I don't think Gundy is going to just ride off into the sunset, because you say he's old, but I think when you have a coach that is in the coaching world, like I feel like if you're like a long tenure coach, a lot of times like those guys retire when they're like 70 or like late 60s. Like Gundy's not quite there yet. So I do still feel like he has some juice left in the fruit there. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to a school like, I think Arkansas is having a down year right now. Like maybe Arkansas gets rid of their coach and they're like, hey, we want to try and compete in the SEC. And they bring in a guy like Mike Gundy, or, maybe a Kentucky team, or I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing here.
UCLA.
Couple schools. UCLA would be another one. Like UCLA, I could easily see being a good spot for Mike Gundy, because that'll be a splash name for them. He'll be able to recruit, and UCLA would have the money in NIL to actually go out and try to get some guys. So, I mean, I think that could be a great potential spot for him.
Well, we will keep an eye on it as the situation progresses. Excuse me. Sorry, get over being sick this week. As the situation progresses, we're going to move on to some ACC news, as Syracuse is fined $25,000 for faking injuries in the game against Clemson. This was a new rule just handed down this year. It's trying to stop players and teams from having teams go down in order to stop the clock, especially when a team is rolling on offense. I talked to Cade Klubnik after the game, and Cade Klubnik had said, yeah, we started really getting our momentum going, started getting the offense going. We started doing some hurry-up stuff, and then all of a sudden, Syracuse players started hitting the ground with cramps. You're going to have to talk to them about that. Is essentially what he said to the press. So Syracuse fined $25,000 for this. First time this happened this year. First time this rule has taken effect. Opinions, thoughts. What's going through your guys' head when you see this?
I mean, for me, I'm not surprised. I think we all knew this was coming. Again, this was something that was introduced last year, kind of across the board, and something they wanted to get rid of. And if it's that blatant, then I mean, I don't think there's any room for this. I mean, some guys would probably call it gamesmanship and stuff like that, but I don't think there's really any room for it in football. I think we've seen it so many times where a team starts marching down the field and has a bunch of momentum going in for a score. Then all of a sudden, 3 plays in a row, there's 3 guys falling down, with cramps. One guy, okay, I can buy that. But when it's 3 plays in a row and it's 3 different guys, and then they're back in the next play, chasing after a guy for 20 yards, they weren't really cramping then. So get it out. And like I said, if it was that blatant that somebody finally put the hammer down and was like, we're going to find a team to make an example out of them, then it must have been pretty bad. So that's where I stand on it.
Well, we are on differing sides on this one. I'm all for the gamesmanship. I'm all for, whatever ultimately gives you the advantage there in the game. If you want to seriously get it out, sure. I mean, 25,000, maybe it'll get the guys to be like, all right. Like maybe once those fines really start racking up, that's when it'll go out there. But I can tell you right now, if this was a bigger school, and Syracuse is huge. Like, don't get it wrong. Like, Syracuse is a big school, but any of the bigger schools like Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Penn State, Bama, Georgia, like dropping the bucket to them. If you want to start getting real change, you start flagging it on the field, like how the NBA brought in the no flopping rule, and they don't really enforce it there, but the premise is right. I think that would be what would help here in these kinds of situations there. So for me, 25K, and it helps you get a win, drop in the bucket for these big time programs. And I don't really see the money ultimately deterring people from faking the injuries.
Yeah, I mean, 25,000 is not a lot of money. Not to mention, we had this conversation, I believe it was last week, about how much money is worth it. Essentially, like, Michigan got fined a whole bunch of money, $20 million, but they won a national championship. Like, is it worth it? Like, if you're doing something and your team is traveling down the field ready to win the game, and faking an injury to give your guys a quick breath is what helps you win that game, and all you got to take is a $25,000 hit, I say it's worth it. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of in the same. It's the exact same conversation as 25 grand. Keep doing it, coach, but only if it's important. Like, only if they're really driving. Like, don't do it just to do it, but do it if it actually matters. If you just give your guy the go ahead, like, you got $75,000 in fines you can play with this year. That's all you, bud, big guy. You're right. Use them use them wisely. I feel like this isn't really much more than a slap on the wrist. Like, hey, don't do that. Come on, guys. And the actual wording is it's unethical and contrary to the spirit of the rules. As a guy from Oregon whose coach took advantage of a loophole in the rule last year to kind of secure a dub, I can't really say nothing negative about them doing it.
Alex, the funny thing is that so obviously we know Syracuse's quarterback Steve Angeli is going to be out for the rest of the year with an injury, but this was the time in the fourth quarter where the injury had already happened there, and Clemson was, I'm not going to say starting to gain momentum, but it was starting to kind of go in that direction. And then, these things happen, and obviously we know how the game ended up with Syracuse getting the win there. So I'm 100% with you there. This definitely helped them secure a win. It wasn't like this was the first quarter, second quarter. Like, this was later in the game. They knew they had some things going against them. They're like, you know what? Let's get our guys a breather. Let's kind of regroup here. 25K is dropping the bucket if it helps you get a win, especially over a ranked opponent.
Oh, yeah. The amount of money they probably gained from that victory alone trumps that. Anyway, Bill, any final comments on this? Do you expect to see more of this? Do you expect this fine to actually really implicate or implement any change?
No, I mean, to your guys' point, so I think it'll depend on what happens. I mean, if it keeps going, and they feel like the fines aren't working, then maybe it becomes penalties. I would hate to see that become the norm, but if they're going to feel like, the fines aren't making the impact they want and it keeps happening on the field, then that's probably where you end up going. You probably either, lose a timeout or they start penalizing teams on the field. And then if you're not hurt all the time and your coaches are telling you to get down, but the refs deem it's a 15-yard penalty, your coaches are going to tell you to get down too many times. So I don't know if that's where we're headed, but I guess we'll see how this plays out for the next year or so.
I'll tell you what, though, they actually start flagging this as a penalty. Coaches are going to get a lot smarter to it, and they're going to send some freshman out there who's on a red shirt and can play three games and go, hey, after the first play, go down injured. We'll take you out for the rest of the game, so we're not flagged. They're going to find loopholes. They're going to find ways to make this work.
I don't know about that, because even if that is the case, I don't even think that'll really matter too much, because they're going to be the player would ultimately have to get a signal from the sideline of some sort, or like look around. Like, I think that's really why these are happening. Like, I think the NCAA, if anything, they would just get a spotter and see, like, all right, let's see who was.
I heard Connor Stallions is hiring, or is looking for a job.
I mean, that's the perfect spotter. Put him up in the booth with some binoculars. He would let you know, like, all right, yeah, that guy dropped too.
There's a signal right there. All right, well, this is the first fine of this nature. If it happens again, we'll talk about it. But I tell you what, the ACC is racking up fines this year. Week 4 weeks in, they already got 3 fines this year already for 2 field stormings, and then this as well. So ACC's raking in the cash. But next up, speaking of raking in cash, staying in the ACC, Virginia Tech, they just fired their coach. We talked about it last week. they've now proposed adding an extra $229 million to its athletics budget over the next 4 years to help position the Hokies to compete with the top programs in the ACC. This is obviously going to help with the looming football coach hiring. We see the School Board of Visitors will hold a virtual meeting September 30th, this upcoming Tuesday, to consider the adjustment. Virginia Tech is asking for an additional $47.1 million for the 2026-2027 school year, and the athletics department budget will be $190.1 million for that year. Obviously, this could not come at a better time for Virginia Tech. You just fired your coach. You got to make some moves now. You want to entice a big-name coach to come to your program. Well, it's going to entice them more than seeing an extra, $48 million going into the football budget alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a smart move for them to try and do this. If you want to play with the big dogs, you gotta have the money coming in. I also think though that when you're looking at it though, I mean, you look at teams like Clemson and it's not necessarily the AC is necessarily weak or anything like that, but like right now, I would say the schools that are taking advantage or not taking advantage, but having success in the ACC right now are schools that aren't those high-profile schools outside of, Miami. I guess Florida State will fall in that category as well, but I'm thinking more about Georgia Tech. I'm thinking about Syracuse, them having undefeated seasons to start so far, not really, utilizing the portal like crazy. They don't have, like, high-profile guys. Like, obviously, we know, Haynes King and Angeli, but they're not spending a ton of money to bring those guys in. So, I think Virginia Tech is focused on trying to, build their program. They need to hire the right coach first, but getting more NIL money will definitely help them in the long run there as well. So I think it's a smart move on their part to try and propose this.
Did we lose Bill?
I think so.
No, he's there still.
Bill, you with us? Oh, maybe not.
Okay, I'm gonna remove him from the screen.
Might be you.
Hey, that's cool, man. But hey, like I said, I think this is fantastic. I think a lot of schools need to kind of open up their wallet with this budget. I think a lot of this also comes from SMU entered the ACC play for the first time last season, made it to the ACC championship game. And one of the things that was talked about most about SMU going into the ACC was the wallets that were open for that program. The Southern Millionaires University is what their nickname was. So I think that they kind of see the success. And like I said earlier, the top 8 spending teams in the country last year during the transfer portals time period are all 30-0, have a combined 30-0 record. Like that's not that there's a reason for that because you're getting the top-notch talent, you're getting the high-profile players in. Texas Tech is one of the top spending teams in the Big 12 and in the country last year. Their offense is showing out. We're going to talk about it here in a second. Actually, might be the perfect segue. Absolutely took care of business against Utah, who we thought was going to be a very close game. Texas Tech came in and absolutely took care of business with those guys that they essentially purchased from the transfer portal. So I think opening up opening up your checkbook like this, it's going to entice a guy like Mike Gundy. I'm only bringing him up because we were just talking about him. Obviously, there's a lot more high-profile names than him out there. For sure. But it will definitely entice someone to come out and be like, hey, you guys are willing to spend, I'm willing to play ball. Because Virginia Tech has the talent, they have the area, they have the recruiting reach that they can make a splash in the ACC if they got the right guy in town. So I think this is a good move.
Agreed. And I'm sure Bill would probably agree with this as well here. So
especially with Virginia Tech. Yeah, especially with Virginia Tech being such a good basketball school over the last recent years, getting to the March Madness and stuff like that. Budget's not only going to help football program; it's going to help the rest of the programs as well. Obviously, this is a college football show, but just for the university, I'm all for it. I've been a quiet Virginia Tech fan since the days of Michael Vick in the late '90s. So I'm always happy to say when Virginia Tech is good, it's good for college football. It's good for the ACC. I think this will help get them there.
Absolutely.
But let's go ahead and just jump over to some what we have next, and that's going to be our recaps from games from last week. Hopefully you guys are able to see some of these games. They're fantastic. I know I was able to watch a couple of them. But Cottrell, where do you want to start this week on our recaps?
I mean, I think you gave us the perfect segue with the last comment about Texas Tech, and we were talking about the Big 12. So, I mean, I feel like we might as well just start off out the gate with that Texas Tech and Utah game because of these. Oh, I mean, there's the one right underneath. It wasn't too close there, but yeah, I mean, I think this is the right way to start it here.
Well, hey, the score is up on the board, 34-10. I think the score might be telling a different story than what the game actually was. This game was a tight game up until the fourth quarter when Texas Tech absolutely took over. And Cottrell, is it just me or did Texas Tech, and I think you actually mentioned it in our group chat, did Texas Tech look better with Will Hammond leading the way?
They did. You know, Will Hammond was – it almost felt like – so I'm just going to kind of walk you through because I was watching this game. Like, this was my 12 o'clock game where I was like, I want to see this all the way through. So I was watching this game and, you know, obviously Morton goes down. He had already threw 2 bad picks in the game, though. And it felt – this was a turnover fest. Every time it was like, all right, Utah turned the ball over. Texas Tech get the ball, turn the ball over. And they were just going back and forth with turnovers, back and forth. Morton ultimately goes down. Hammond comes in the game. And at first, you can kind of feel that Texas Tech had the training wheels on him a little bit. They were like, oh, this kid's a redshirt freshman. We don't want to put too much on his plate. This game is still close. But then I don't know what it was, but there was just a point where they ripped the Band-Aid off and they're like, all right, well, you're going to run our offense like normal. You're going to make your reads, and we're going to ultimately see what happens. And he was not scared at all to let the ball fly. He was throwing over-the-shoulder passes. He was throwing, He was throwing passes ultimately back shoulder. He was completing pretty much everything. I mean, he was 13 of 16. He had 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The kid played absolutely out of his mind, and he really should have only had 2 incompletions because one of the passes, their leading receiver, Reggie Virgil, had actually dropped one that he had been catching all game. Like, he was phenomenal all game, and he had actually dropped a key one there. So, but yeah, Texas Tech looked really good defensively. I will agree with you as well that the score was not necessarily indicative of how the game went. Texas Tech really blew the doors open in the fourth quarter there, but Texas Tech definitely had this game in full control, at least defensively, for a large majority of it.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about Devin Dampier being on the Heisman shortlist last week. I know I was, at least. And they held him to 11 rushes for 27 yards, no touchdowns in the air or on the ground. Utah was 4 for 14 on third downs. You would have thought this was a home game for Texas Tech. And Bill, welcome back, my friend. You'll always bring up the fact that playing at Utah is such a huge advantage for Utah, but it seemed like Texas Tech kind of flipped the script in the fourth quarter and really kind of made it like it was almost their home field the way that they were playing. But yeah, I'm absolutely impressed with Will Hammond. The last time I saw him was in the Liberty Bowl against Arkansas last year. I think he went like 26 for 39. He had a couple interceptions and a touchdown. He did not look that great, but I tell you what, he definitely matured over the offseason, did a lot of training, improved his footwork, improved his accuracy, and he looked good. But I mean, Bill, I'm gonna let you go ahead and recap this game for you. But I have a question I want y'all to think about while we talk about this here. Is there going to be a quarterback controversy at Texas Tech? I mean, team's undefeated, but the team did not look good this last game until Will Hammond came in. Does that create a controversy there?
I mean, it can. I mean, I think it'll be very telling. Do they play today or are they off?
Tech? That's a good question. Let's find out.
I can't remember seeing them on the schedule. I could be wrong though.
Nope.
They're off. They got Houston next week.
So there you go.
Banger. By the way.
What?
I think that's going to be a banger next week.
Yeah. So I think the next 2 weeks of practice obviously are going to be very telling. I think it's going to be very telling who starts that game at Houston. It's an important game, like Cottrell said. It's going to be a banger. I mean, we've seen it before. It's not like it's unheard of for the backup to come in and, like Cottrell said, just run the offense better. It happens sometimes. Sometimes starters try to do too much, or they overthink things or outthink themselves. And sometimes you'll have that, that wide-eyed backup come in and just be like, run the playbook, and I'm going to go to my first or second read, not overthink it. If it's there, throw it. If not, and he came in, and like Cottrell said, once he got settled, he started letting it fly. I think Texas Tech's a good football team, and I think, they're going to I don't think they want to go into a situation where they're trying to play both of them. So I think at some point the coach is going to decide which way he wants to go and just say, this is the guy. And if it happens mid-season and they make a switch, so be it. But they have, they to me, as we sit here right now, and it's early, don't get me wrong, but I think it's hard to argue they're probably not the most complete team in the Big 12 right now. And I would say they're a year ahead. I mean, I think with all they did in portal and recruiting, I think a lot of people, including myself, thought they were going to be really good next year. They're ahead of schedule. They look really good right now. And again, going into Utah, it's not easy. And they stifled Utah most of the game. The offense, again, like Cottrell said, there was turnovers. It did get sloppy here and there, but Texas Tech defense never looked like they weren't up to the challenge to win that game. And then they got big stop after big stop. They got a couple 3-and-outs when they needed them. They just never let Utah really back into that game. So I think they're definitely one of, if not the best teams in the Big 12. They're right up there with Iowa State. Arizona State looks like they finally got their shit together. So we'll see. But it's a very impressive win. It's definitely one. Come 5 weeks from now, you're like, I'm glad we're not going to Utah now, and you can look back and like, yeah, we already beat them. It's going to be a good win to have on your resume and have on your under your belt already. So Texas Tech, definitely a team to watch for me.
What about you, Cottrell? Before we move on to another game, do you think this is going to create a quarterback controversy at Tech?
Short answer would be not yet. I think Morton has done enough as a whole that his job should not be in jeopardy, especially, due to injury. And he's got 2 weeks off. And I don't know if they came out and officially said it, if it was a concussion or not, but I believe it would have been just because of the hit that he left on. I would just assume that it was concussion related, but I would imagine that regardless of what it is, he should be back for next week's game. And it's not to say that they weren't going to even win with Morton as the quarterback. Like, I think that would be a completely separate thing. Like if they were losing all game and he just provided them a spark. Like, I look back when Caleb Williams took Spencer Rattler's job, it was Spencer Rattler couldn't do anything against the Utah team, and not at Utah, they couldn't do anything against Texas. And, Caleb Williams came in and, scored 28 points and led this huge comeback victory and things like that. Like, I don't think that was the case in this game here against Utah. So I don't think there's a controversy quite yet, but I will say if Will Hammond is going to play like that the rest of the way, he's going to make it really tough for the coaches to not start him as QB1.
Yeah, I like what you have to say there. Obviously, with the extra week off, we should get more injury news this upcoming week, as well as what's going on at Texas Tech. I might as well keep going clockwise. Head over to the right. Let's talk about Oklahoma-Auburn. Obviously, it was
they're going to be back to quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It looks like a bunch of teams lost their quarterbacks this weekend. Auburn, Oklahoma, 24, Oklahoma 24, Auburn 17. This was supposed to be the revenge game for Jackson Arnold. Realistically, it looked like Oklahoma's defense was getting all the revenge for how bad Arnold played last year. 9 sacks, 14 tackles for loss. Defense absolutely controlled the line of scrimmage. Cottrell, what did you see in this game?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, ultimately it was Oklahoma absolutely dominated in the trenches. It was a party at the quarterback. Jackson Arnold kept finding himself on the ground there. And I also think that Jackson Arnold didn't do himself any favors. It was almost like he didn't understand what he was saying. And I get it. There were times where Auburn didn't have players that were open, but there were also other times where it was like, hey, get it out to the flat. Like, even if it's just getting a couple yards, don't get sacked. Like, you've held the ball for 6 seconds now. Get the ball out of your hands, scramble out, throw the ball away, whatever the case may be, but you can absolutely not take a sack. I'm watching the last drive, and I was so beside myself. One, because, of course, I said I thought Auburn was going to win the football game, but at that point, I didn't even care. I had it in a parlay for Auburn to cover the 6.5 spread that it was, and they were down 5, and Jackson Arnold takes, 2 or 3 consecutive sacks to end the game, and the last one being a safety. Like, dude, there is hardly any time left. Even if you're just throwing up a 50-50 ball, you can absolutely not take a sack there. And so IQ-wise, it just felt like, Jackson didn't understand what he was saying. He missed a couple of just easy throws. Like Cam Coleman, and I want to go on record and say this right now. Cam Coleman, we talk about Ryan Williams, we talk about, Nick Marsh at Michigan State. We talk about a lot of guys from this class that's going to be draft eligible in a couple years, with Jeremiah Smith obviously headlining them. Cam Coleman is the second best receiver in that class. Cam Coleman is an absolute technician as a receiver. I don't know how you missed that guy, because if you just put it up in his vicinity, he's going to come down with it. So with all that said, though, got to give a ton of credit to Oklahoma. It coming out that John Mateer actually broke his hand early in the second quarter, and they still played the way that they did. And he was able to make all the throws and really not miss any time in that game is absolutely phenomenal from them. And then, again, just giving them kudos for that defensive line, really taking it to Auburn and making Jackson and company very uncomfortable back there.
I will say that Jackson Arnold did post on Thursday, I believe, that he had successful surgery already. So he's already on the way to recovery. Who was it? I believe it was Phillip Rivers, I think it was. He operated on him when he broke his hand, and he was only out 10 days. Or is it Daniel Jones? Might have been Daniel Jones. He only missed 10 days and missed 1 game. So, recovery time, obviously, I'm sure they're not going to push it, but they're saying that John Mateer could be out 3 to 4 games. He could be back a lot sooner than that if this heals up quickly, just like I said, this surgeon that he got operated on him has operated on Drew Brees, Mike Trout, and other big names. So, dude knows what he's doing. So who knows how much time John Mateer misses? But the tough schedule that Oklahoma's got coming up soon, they cannot afford to even miss 1 game of John Mateer, Cottrell. Because upcoming here soon, they have Kent State. Next, they have a bye today. Next weekend, they got Kent State. So that's at least 2 weeks kind of to let John Mateer kind of heal up. But then the tough schedule starts. You got Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, LSU to end the season of all ranked matchups. So essentially, they got 2 weeks to get the backup quarterback comfortable or to hope that John Mateer comes back faster than expected.
I will say this as well. I look at it slightly different. I give them an extra week. I say they got 3 weeks because Oklahoma has done a great job so far at being undefeated at this point in the season. 1 loss does not kill you. Hell, 2 losses doesn't kill you. But I wouldn't want Mateer to come back and say, hey, your first game back, it is an absolute must win. We need you to be perfect the rest of the way. So I'll give them 3 weeks. You get you get the bye, obviously. You get the Kent game, which basically will be a bye anyway. Right. And then the following week is when you really get in this action against Texas. But that's the Red River rivalry, though. Like, anything can happen in that game, no matter who's starting at quarterback. So, and it's not like Texas has looked great on their side of things. So if I'm looking at it, I would say, hey, Mateer, you're not playing this. You're not, unless he's ready. I would say, hey, you're not playing versus Texas. We're trying to get you ready for 28 days from now. We want you to play. Who's the game after Texas?
South Carolina.
We want you to be ready for the South Carolina game. Like, that's what we're banking on. And if somehow we beat Texas, we're going to even push you back. Like, the South Carolina game, we don't need you there. We want you to be 100% if that's the case. So I think Oklahoma has done a great job of affording themselves that luxury of, being in that spot there. But you don't want to lose too many games in a row there, of course. But that Texas game, especially with Texas not looking like the Texas team that a lot of people thought they would to start the year here, that game looks a little bit more interesting, especially if Oklahoma's defensive line can keep having that kind of success. And, we already know that Texas's O-line has not looked great so far, and they're pretty young there as well. So,
yeah. Honestly, I bet Jackson Arnold, speaking of defenses and defensive lines and all this, I bet Jackson Arnold was having such like PTSD flashbacks from last year at Oklahoma, getting sacked 9 times. That's the thing I really want to give a credit to is Oklahoma's defense has really stepped up this year. I think they played fantastic football. Obviously, they gave up 13 points to Michigan and 17 to Auburn, but other than that, I mean, they haven't allowed any opponent to score 20 points or more this season. Kent State, obviously, I don't think is going to either. And that Texas game with Arch Manning not looking as, how do I say this, as polished as we assumed he would be. You're right. It could be up in the air. Who knows? That could be Texas's really first big game since Ohio State. And this defense is going to get after him, just like Ohio State's did. So, I'm excited to see what Oklahoma will decide to do over the next coming weeks. Obviously, they're thankful for a bye this week. They're thankful for Kent State next week. And then they got some stuff to figure out. So, John Mateer surgery successful. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on this timeline as we go episode to episode to keep you all updated as we continue on. But
Alex, I'm curious to know here, just real quick, since we're still waiting on Bill to come back too. You have been big on the John Mateer for Heisman campaign. And
yeah,
I'm not going to say that it can't happen now, but you missed 2 games, potentially 3 games. You're pretty behind there. Right now, I'm going to give you a little mulligan. Right now, is there like anybody who else you're seeing that you're like, all right, well, Mateer is out. And
John Mateer.
I know Carson Beck isn't our guy. We talked about that last week. Carson Beck's not our guy. Anybody else that you'd say, all right, from what I've seen so far, they're my guy moving forward here until Mateer gets back?
No, I'm telling you right now, man, it's still John Mateer. I know your question. I know what you're asking me, and I'm not going to give you the answer that you want. But I believe it's still John Mateer.
What's the answer that I want?
The answer you want is for me to give you another name.
Oh.
But I'm still confident. Okay, the answer you want is just for me to give somebody else. But I'm so confident in how John Mateer is playing this season that the bye week, missing a Kent State game, and say mixing Texas, I don't think, because what is the Heisman? The best college football player in the land. Missing a Kent State game is not going to do anything for your credentials. That Texas game definitely would. When you finish the season with 6 straight ranked opponents, he has plenty of time to make up any ground that he loses while missing the Kent State game. You know what I mean? Like, I still have faith in John Mateer winning this award this season. And Avery Johnson later, you know what I mean? Like Devin Dampier, I had you in the back of my mind. You did not show out against Texas Tech and ultimately completely stifled your chances of being invited to New York City with that performance. I'm not saying he's not going to be good, but Texas Tech just found a way to really shut him down. And no matter what these defenses do, John Mateer is still finding a way to be productive on the ground and through the air. And he makes his team better. The fact that he was able to make the throws in the second half that he was able to make with a broken hand kind of tells you the athlete and player he is. So I'm not off the John Mateer train yet. I'm not even going to flirt with another train right now. Okay, I'm still riding. I got my ticket. I'm in the caboose, and I'm driving this thing all the way to the finish line.
Well, I was trying to give you a slight out because, one, and it's going to segue us right into the next game here. You've been big on Bo Pribula. I thought you may give me Bo as the guy. Didn't necessarily have the greatest game against South Carolina. Missouri won this game on the ground 100%. But I thought that was going to be the name that you wanted to throw in, and because I will say you've been on him earlier than what we were. We talked about him during the SEC preview, and obviously we were all familiar with him because he was Penn State's backup. But I wasn't expecting this Missouri team to come out and ultimately look like this, especially with Norris Sellers playing. So I was curious to see if that was going to be the name that you were going to throw out there.
I'm going to tell you right now, Bo Pribula is going to be my day one Heisman pick 2026. The second this season ends, the second they announce John Mateer as this year's Heisman, I start campaigning for Bo Pribula next year. Okay, so yes, Bo's my guy, but I think that what he's shown this year in his first year as a starter and what he's going to be able to advance and learn and to take into next season. Next year, he's going to be hands down the best football player in the country. And he
Bill,
showed flashes.
Right?
Yeah, I see his eyes are like. But hey, 29-20. Go for it, bro.
I mean, listen, I don't know if John Mateer is even going to win now after he's going to miss a month. That's going to hurt him. But that being said, I mean, I think Bo will be in the mix next year, but you're going to have, you know, I mean, I would dare say every single one of the quarterbacks from all three of our teams are going to be in the mix next year as well.
That's what I was really getting at here.
Dante Moore.
Alex is saying all this about Bo Perbula when he knows come February 2nd. I don't even know what show. I don't even know what day that is. But whatever show we do after the national championship, when we talk about our long shots for Heisman or our favorites for Heisman the following year, it'll be a cold day in hell if Dante Moore does not declare for the draft and comes back to school and he says that Dante Moore is not the favorite to win the Heisman next year. Like, that's just not happening.
No, it's Avery Johnson, Dante Moore, Bo Perbula.
I'm not hearing you. But I do think Dante keeps playing how he's been playing, and he hasn't even done anything necessarily special, but all the traits are popping.
Yeah.
All the traits are popping. I think there's a shot that he may say, you know, thanks, Oregon, for the year. I'm going to the big leagues.
I hope not. And then Bo can transfer to Oregon. And then we can all have a good old time. But hey, let's not get too far off track.
Enough.
What was that? Oh, he's not old
enough.
Yeah, he hasn't been around long enough. But hey, we're talking about Bo Perbula. Might as well keep the train rolling. Missouri, South Carolina. Missouri 29, Missouri 20. Great game. Lenora Sellers absolutely came out and balled. 18 for 28, 302 yards, 2 touchdowns. But the offense did not help him rushing the ball. 22 carries, negative 9 yards. What was your guys' opinions of this game?
I was impressed how he played, especially coming off, you know, a concussion. You never know how, you know, if there's going to be cobwebs or, you know, a little bit slow to see things sometimes. I thought he played great. This game was obviously a little bit lower scoring than I thought it was going to be. You know, I think we all thought this had a chance to go out and be a track meet for sure. You know, and I think Bo played well. I mean, it's crazy to think as pleasant of a surprise as Missouri's been. You know, coming out of camp, he wasn't even going to be the starter. So, I mean, that team is his firmly now. So, it's a big win for Missouri. I feel bad for South Carolina. I wasn't quite as high on them as, you know, as Cottrell was at the beginning of the year, but I did think they were going to be a little bit better than this, and I feel like they've had a little bit of bad luck. And, you know, they're what, 2-2, I believe?
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, they're probably the best 2-2 team in the country, but you know, they got some big games coming up to kind of get back into it if they can upset somebody. But you know, I thought there was a decent shot they would go down to Missouri and win. I picked Missouri, but you know, if Lawrence played well, which, you know, to Alex's point, he did. He just didn't really have a ton of support everywhere else. So I think South Carolina's got some things they really need to tighten up on. And again, Missouri, I think, is one of those teams that's just kind of on the rise right now. I think they're with that offense. I don't think anybody's really going to sign up to play them and be excited about it right now. But that being said, I don't think they have a bad schedule the rest of the way either. If I remember for our preview show, I think they have one of the easier schedules in the SEC. So
Missouri?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they got UMass today. I don't know why. They got Bama, Auburn, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Arkansas. So it ain't too smooth, but there's a couple bumps there. But it's definitely manageable.
I feel like they're
no Georgia, no LSU, no Ole Miss, no Texas. Like, that's, you look at that.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we all have to agree Oklahoma's a lot better than we thought they were going to be.
For sure, A&M is good.
Bama's probably not maybe as daunting, but to Alex's point, A&M is definitely you know, definitely a contender. And you know, Vanderbilt, that's going to be a tough game too. So I think probably the beginning of the year, their schedule looked a little easier than it does now that we've seen everybody play. So they'll be battle tested, but if they can get through that somehow, I mean, it'll be very interesting to see where Missouri ends up at the end for me.
Yeah, I mean, the only team that has more than one loss on their schedule is Arkansas. The last game of the year at 2-2. Everyone else is one loss or undefeated. So we're definitely going to see what Missouri's made of.
Auburn stinks.
I think though the other thing about this game is that it follows really the trend of the last game that things are won in the trenches. Like Alex, you talked about South Carolina only having. Well, not only having, but they had -9 rushing yards for the entire game. Then on the flip side of it, you look at Missouri, and they had 285 yards rushing. They also had 5 sacks in this one, and South Carolina only got 1 sack on Bo Perbula. Like, the trenches were so important in this game here, and, gotta give credit where credit is due. Missouri took the fight to Lenoris, and for Lenoris to be a dual threat kind of guy and have -29 yards rushing, and I mean, I get it. Half of those were on half of the carries are considered sacks, but they did a great job of containing him and making him try to beat them with his arm. So this Missouri team is going to give some teams a rough fight, and I'm very curious to see how far Bo can lead this group of guys.
I also just really like how they can kind of beat you at both ends. Like, they can beat you through the air if they need to. They don't have the greatest passing day like they didn't against South Carolina. They're going to own you on the ground. I mean, 48 carries, 285 yards, 6 yards per carry for an entire ball game. I mean, you got 3 guys averaging over 6 yards a carry, with Ahmed Hardy leading the way at 138 yards. So what I like about Missouri is in the past years, with like Luther Burden at wide receiver and all those guys, like, they could beat you through the air. If you found a way to shut down the wide receivers, you had a good chance of beating Missouri. But this year, you stop that passing game, they're going to beat you on the ground. And then you load up the box, Bo Perbula is going to beat you over the top. You find a way to shut everything down, Bo Perbula is going to beat you with his legs. So they just can beat you in so many facets of the game. That's what I'm most intrigued about, to watch them enter into more of SEC play, is to see which facet of the game is going to beat which team. Like, it's just every time I look at the stat sheet, I'm always like, which area of their game was needed to win today? Because I feel like they can execute on all 3 levels. But that's South Carolina. That's Missouri. We got one last game to recap. It's probably going to be the quickest game to recap. And Bill, you got some explaining to do, my friend, because this terrible-ass Indiana team just beat Illinois 63-10.
Well, timeout. Number one. I said Indiana was terrible last year. I said this year, we'll find out what Indiana is this year. They played a hell of a game. Illinois looked awful, like awful.
Tried to tell you guys, by the way.
All right. You'll have your moment. Relax. But I'm not comparing this year's Indiana team to last year's. Last year's team was a fraud. This year's team may be legit. We'll see. That was a good first step for them, I'll tell you that much, to just blow the doors off Illinois, who was, again, a lot of people's kind of Cinderella pick in the Big Ten. Indiana made them pay for every single mistake Illinois made, and Illinois made a lot of them. They couldn't tackle, plus the turnovers. Indiana came out ready to play. Again, I picked this game. This was the only game I got wrong. And I was worried about it because I looked at the spread and I was like, it's kind of disrespectful. But maybe Vegas knows something I don't. Well, they sure as hell did. So Indiana, I will say this. Indiana, for me, offensively looks like they have a wider variety and a better, definitely more ways to hurt you this year than they did last year. I felt like they really kind of led with their defense last year, but their offense, I don't want to call it vanilla because that's just not doing it justice, but it wasn't very explosive either. And I feel like they've changed that a little bit this year. And I don't know what happened to Illinois. I mean, we saw them play Duke. They had a good win last week. They did not look prepared for that football game. And that is very surprising. And if you're an Illini fan, I think you'd be a little bit alarmed. to lose 63-10 is nuts. Huge win for Indiana. You know, Coach Szn just keeps racking up wins in Indiana. And again, a very, very shocking performance for me from, you know, more of an experienced kind of senior, junior-led Illinois team, you know, under Brett Bielema that looked really lost, really struggled just to do the basics. And like I said, you got to give Indiana credit. Every single mistake Illinois made, Indiana just made them pay for it every single time. So kind of like the Texas Tech game earlier, this will be a win that Indiana can bank and will be very, very helpful for them down the road. You know, 2 months from now, that win is going to look really good. So even probably more so than it does now. So I will give this Indiana team credit. It's a good start to getting away from the stink of the 2024 Indiana team.
Alex, it almost felt like this team watched Wire to Wire last week, and they wanted to prove a point to you. You know, you talked about your guy, you know, Lee being out for the year. Yeah. With his injury, and you know, Indiana wouldn't have success running the ball, and they just went out and had 312 rushing yards, and just taking it to that Illinois team. And Illinois had 2 rushing yards. Like that again. It feels like this was the theme of the weekend. The battle was won in the trenches. Indiana had 7 sacks on Luke Altmaier. Like, that Illinois offense literally could not get a rhythm to save their life. And as much as you may like Luke Altmaier, when you make that Illinois team one-dimensional and you know the run and you know the pass is coming, I mean, you might as well just have your guys tee off on the kid. Illinois doesn't have the pass catchers to absolutely, you know, blow the top off or anything like that. Like, when you know it's coming, it's easy to shut down that Illinois team. And I think they are talented, but I just think as a whole, if they don't have their running game going, because they are a big run to set up the kind of team, whether it be play action, whether it be read options with Luke getting out there and making plays with his legs, Indiana was able to neutralize all of that, and they were able to absolutely dominate the trenches on both sides. And when you're able to rush for 312 yards, and then you combine it with the fact that your quarterback threw 5 touchdowns in the game, that's how you get wins by 53 points against top 10 schools in the country. So a lot of credit to that Indiana team. I don't think this is the end of the road necessarily for Illinois, but I think Indiana went into Bill's point. I think Indiana went into this with a lot to prove, and they were like, all right, this ain't your grandma's Indiana team. This ain't even the Indiana team of 2024. We're going to go out there and we're going to put belts to ass, and we're going to take care of business against Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of did the facets that your Pee Wee coaches tell you to do. Stop the run early in early in the possession, force 3rd and longs. That's exactly what they did. Illinois averaged 0.1 yards per carry on the ground, and were 1 for 10 on 3rd down because they were constantly put in 3rd and long situations. So the Indiana just did the basics and did them right. And that offense just moved up and down the field, unstoppable, scored at least 14 points every quarter of the game. It makes me thankful that we have a bye, that Oregon has a bye before we face Indiana, because that offense looks like something you got to prep for. So that'll be a good game to talk about too once we get there. Well, that's it for the games of the week of week 4.
Indiana's really only got 2 more tests left. I mean, they got a tricky trip to Kenneck later tonight, but if they can get out of that, I mean, they got Oregon and Penn State left in the schedule. They got to go to Oregon.
Go to Watson. That's right.
Oregon. I think they go to Penn State too, actually.
I think so as well.
Yeah, they do. But I mean, this could be the
looking like this.
This is looking like 2024 again. 10-2 Indiana. We'll see.
But hey, you know what time it is?
Time to throw some stuff on the grill, baby.
It's time for the grill, cooked or not. We gotta get like an intro video for this segment. Like we gotta get something. I don't know what it is yet, but I'll figure it out. We're gonna put it in
for sure. We'll get
cooked or not
graphic for it.
That's what I'm saying. We need a video. We need something. But hey, cooked or not, we got some new faces. We got some new teams. I don't know if everyone's going to be happy with what's on the grill this week, but I don't care. We're going to talk about it. And that's boom. Got 4 things on the grill this week. We have the Civil War rivalry, which is my personal pick on this one. Oregon State. Is that rivalry dead? Is it cooked or not? We got Luke Fickell, we got Cal, and we got Utah on a cooked or not. Where do y'all want to start? Control, you pick.
God damn! You know what's funny? We'll start with Civil War here, but you know what's funny?
Huh?
All week, you always ask us, for suggestions for cooked or not, and all week I was like, all right, Luke Fickell's my guy. Like Luke Fickell for sure has to be on here. Yeah. I'm like looking through the landscape of everything, and nothing else is really catching my eye. But like right now, I saw Utah's logo, and it made me think Dylan Raiola should be on this goddamn grill. But that is another story for another day. For right now, maybe later in the season we can put him on the grill. But
why did the Utah logo make you think of Dylan Raiola?
The red and white made me think about Nebraska, and then it just made me think, Dylan, fake Mahomes should be on this grill getting cooked.
Fake Mahomes.
All right, where are we starting, Control?
I say Civil War rivalry. Let's get it going. Let's get it hot and spicy right away.
Here's all I gotta say. Okay, we talked about the stats earlier in the week. I think that this Civil War rivalry is dead. I think it died when the Pac-12 did. And hear me out on this. 4 years ago, the Beavers were able to beat Oregon. Both Oregon and Oregon State were ranked at that time. I think Oregon State was 16. I think the Ducks were 13. Oregon State was able to win. Oregon has won the last 3 years in a row. Absolutely, hands down, demolished Oregon State. Since the end of the Pac-12, Oregon State's recruiting class is towards the bottom. They aren't getting the same reputable recruits that they did when they were part of an actual conference with actual teams in there. Which actually makes this completely an unfair matchup. It's almost like when Ohio State plays Miami of Ohio. Like, yeah, it's an in-state rivalry, but is it really a rivalry? No, I think it's completely done. I think that the landscape on the de-evolution of, I know it's the wrong word, but the disbandment of the Pac-12 killed this rivalry. And I don't think that the new Pac-12 is going to have the teams to boost it up enough for them to be able to start recruiting at the same level that they were used to be able to do so, that would make this game competitive again. Will Oregon State win this rivalry again? Maybe once every 50 years, but if it continues down the path it's on now, Oregon State will never beat Oregon again.
So you're going well done.
Oh, yeah, I'm going absolutely well done. Like, I'm talking like throw it in the trash, give it to the dog so it doesn't go to waste, but it's done. Like, I think it's well done.
Bill?
Tell me I'm wrong.
I will go. This is tough. I mean, Alex brings up a lot of good points. I would say it's medium well because what's going on in the field has to count. So, I would say rivalries never die, and we've seen other rivalries where they go on really long streaks, and it kind of gets boring and one-sided. But that being said, I think I think we're all hoping the Pac-12 comes back and becomes the Pac-12 in some form to where it's just a legit conference. And I think if that happens and Oregon State can start getting money back into the program and start recruiting, then I think that game becomes a little bit more competitive again. As we sit right now with the way everything's going with Oregon having the money they do, plus the Big Ten money, yeah, I mean, it's not a fair fight right now. And Oregon's doing the right thing and just kicking the shit out of them. That's what you're supposed to do to your rival. So
sure.
I'm going to say medium well because, like I said, I don't think you just totally fold on something literally called the Civil War. I think it's a great name for a rivalry. And I think you got to give Oregon State some time to deal with, the situation that's around them and the situation they're in. But again, to Alex's point, you do have to count what's going on the field right now. And right now it's not a competitive rivalry. So I'm medium well. That's where I'm at.
So I'm gonna get a little dark here. Not gonna lie, guys. I'm gonna get a little dark here. I'm gonna live up to the reputation. I'm going to, well, Bill, I don't make I don't even know the right way to say this, but when we talked about Alex Smith and him winning, the award for comeback player of the year, and he played bad, I said what I thought about it. And Alex, you may not want to hear this, but I'm going to tell you the truth. This rivalry is medium right now. And the reason why it's medium is two things. Oregon is great right now. And they have Dan Lanning. They have all the money coming in through NIL, and all of that is fine and dandy. But I want to tell you two things that are bona fide facts, whether you like it or not. One, Dan Lanning will at some point no longer be the coach of the Oregon Ducks. Now, I don't know if it's going to be to take an NFL job. I don't know if it's to take another job. I don't know if it's ultimately maybe Kirby Smart retires or he goes to the NFL and he goes down and takes the Georgia job. But at some point, Dan Lanning will no longer be the coach of the Ducks. And the cash cow that you got in Phil Knight giving you all the money, Phil Knight's 87. He's not going to live forever. And I'm not saying that the Oregon money will stop coming in from Phil Knight, from Nike and all that. But I'm just saying it may start to look a little bit different there. And, ultimately for me, I think once you come back down to earth, because right now Oregon's just on another playing field. And that wasn't always the case there. Even when, like, pre-Dan Lanning, like you go 2022, 2020, before that it was 2016. It was like once every 4 or 5-ish years Oregon State was getting a win. I think that's what you're going to get back to once you get past the Dan Lanning, Phil Knight era. So I'm going to go medium right now. You guys are hot. You got it rolling. But, once this phase, the honeymoon phase is over, I think Oregon State will get back in there and start getting a win every half decade.
We've won like 14 of the last 17 meetings. This isn't just a Dan Lanning thing. Oregon's been dominating Oregon State for as long as I've been a fan. And Dan Lanning is not the reason Oregon is good. Like, yes, Dan Lanning is the current coach, but they went to 2 national championships in the last 10 years before Dan Lanning was involved. But Dan Lanning leaves, that's fine. We are now such a high-profile program that we demand a high-profile coach from here on out. So I don't think Dan Lanning leaving is going to stop any train from rolling through town.
Alex, you've been you haven't obviously not as high profile as you are now, but like you've had guys coach there before. Like you've had obviously Chris DeBall, you had Chip Kelly, you now have Dan Lanning. Like you've had guys there, and it's not to say like Oregon State's going to come and dominate the series. I'm just saying that there were times, again, pre-Dan Lanning, I saw 2020 Oregon State get a win. I saw 2022 Oregon State get a win, and they had absolutely no business getting wins in either one of those games. So
they were ranked in both those games.
They were not ranked in the 2020
Oregon State
game.
was ranked in both
not in
of those
2020.
games. Well, that's COVID year. That's different. COVID year is different for everybody. Like COVID year, you can't count no COVID year. 2022, Oregon State was ranked.
I mean, they were 21. Yeah,
Oregon State will never get to that level again without being in a legitimate conference. And the new Pac-12 will not be a legit conference for at least 15 to 20 years before it's recognized. And that is the one thing that's biggest for recruiting is what your stats or your school is as far as conference and that stuff goes. So the Pac-12 will not get the same respect. Oregon State will not get the same respect. It's going to be at least 20 years before we're talking about Oregon State being anything close to a good football team.
I see. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I think they just need to get the right coach in there. When you lose guys like Damian Martinez to Miami, you lose your coach to Michigan State. Like that's.
So why did you lose Damian Martinez? Because the Pac-12 wasn't a thing anymore.
Well, I would argue
notoriety.
that his coach was no longer there either. But Damian Martinez also took a step up. I think regardless, even if you are in the Pac-12, Miami's a step up from Oregon State.
Well, yeah. I mean, I definitely agree there too. But yeah, so I'm saying that they all left. Like Cam Ward left Washington State. Yes, I guarantee it was for money in a better situation, but also like Washington State wasn't part of a conference. Same with Washington State. That rivalry is dead too. The new rivalry is just going to be Washington and Oregon. And Washington State and Oregon State can have their little rivalry, and Oregon and Washington can have theirs. Because that's big brother and little brother. Like that's essentially what it is now. But
I get it.
I could spend all day talking about this. And I know you could spend all day arguing with me about it. But we're going to move on. I think up next, might as well talk about the California Bears. Maybe this is a little bit preemptive. Obviously, they started off the season 3-0, beating Oregon State, Texas Southern, and taking care of business against Big Ten Minnesota. But then they go to San Diego State and get absolutely boat raced, 34-0. Not looking like the team from the previous 3 weeks. Jaron Coe, I always mess up his last name. Cal's quarterback, 17 for 38, under 50% completion. San Diego State just looked like the head and shoulders better team. Did Cal just have a nice start to the season, and this is who they really are, or did they really just trip up against San Diego State?
I'm going to go medium rare here. Look, Cal, did it look cool that, they started off 3-0? Did it look cool that JKS was, carving up defenses, especially in his first start there? Absolutely. But these are the growing pains that you're going to have as starting a true freshman. Anytime you start a true freshman at a big time program, and even if it's against a team like San Diego State, you're going to have the ups and downs unless they're a generational talent. So I think Cal is medium rare. I feel like they really couldn't have had crazy expectations this year anyway. So whatever you're getting is going to be good. So I'm rolling with medium rare here. And I'll also say this: San Diego State is very well coached, because I know that, because the head guy at San Diego State is God, I just had his name in my head. Former coach at Kent State. He was the OC at Colorado. Sean, why am I forgetting his name right now? But Sean Lewis. Sean Lewis is the guy who's at the helm at San Diego State. Very, very good coach. He will kill you with pace, and that's exactly what they did in this one. They got the freshman QB to make some mistakes there. I think Cal will be fine there. I'll go medium rare.
I think medium rare is probably right where to go. And I agree with a lot of what Cottrell said. I mean, I think you playing a true freshman, there's going to be ups and downs. Even when you have a generational guy, there's going to be ups and downs. You're talking about a true freshman. He's probably 18 years old. And they're going to make mistakes. They're kids. I think Cal still has a ton to look forward to, so I'm not going crazy with this. I think you can kind of see what, he's starting to look like, and, you can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel and hopefully what he ends up being. Again, San Diego State's not a pushover program. They don't stink, and I think Cottrell made a great point as well. You're when you go play a team like that and you do make mistakes, it's going to cost you when you're playing a team that's well coached. And Sean Lewis has been around for a long time. So I wouldn't be too alarmed if I'm Cal. I would still be way more optimistic than I would be anything else. You see the talent, you see the potential, and you hope he just keeps progressing. I don't think anybody Cal going like 8, 9, 10-0 before they lost a football game. So,
right.
Again, looking at the schedule, San Diego State, maybe that's not where you thought it was going to come from, but again, it's not the end of the road either. And I think with the potential and the possible ceiling that he has, you hope he stays there. But I don't think they're cooked. I like medium rare.
All right. Yeah, I do too. I think a freshman, 34-10. Sorry, I'm looking ahead at Texas Tech. But no, like I said, Cal losing like that to San Diego State. I'm going to have to agree with you and say medium rare. Like I said, they have so much to look forward to that, like from where they've been the last couple of years. That starting out with 3-0 is a huge celebration for the program. one loss like this shouldn't definitely put them on the fire. So I'm going to have to say rare to medium rare. I'm not really too worried because honestly, if they finish at a 500 record this season, Cal would count that as a successful year,
Absolutely.
especially with a true freshman quarterback. So looking at it from that perspective, I would have to say more closer to the rare side. But another team that did get their absolute butts stomped this weekend by Texas Tech. We talked about it a little bit more. The Utah Utes, 34-10. They lost at home to Texas Tech. Absolutely had nothing going for them. Devin Dampier, who was talked about for having Heisman odds posted, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. He had 27 yards on the ground, which was an area of his game that he was really able to help Utah, was extending plays with his legs and rushing for 50 or more yards the previous 3 games. The only reason that I say Utah is medium right now is because the rest of their schedule isn't crazy. I think that they're honestly the best team that they play going forward is probably going to be BYU and Baylor. I think are the 2 games that they really need to worry about. Baylor's on the road, BYU's on the road. But other than that, I see them that they could finish the season 9-3. I think that's a successful season for Utah and gives them a chance to make that Big 12 championship game. So I'm going to say medium. But if teams find a way to stop Dampier and keep him in the pocket, we're going to have to see what kind of thrower he is. And if Utah has to rely on his arm to win games, then they might as well be well done. So we got to see what they do and what schemes they come up with for future games to make sure Devin Dampier has the ability to run with his legs and maximize his skill set. So I'm going to go medium right now only because the schedule is not too daunting, but leaning towards medium well only because I don't think after watching this game against Texas Tech that Devin Dampier can beat a team with his arm.
I am pretty much with you on that as well, and I'll go pretty quick here. Look, Utah is right there, middle of the road there. I go medium rare to medium, and I think that a big part of it is because they are in the Big 12. Outside, of course, Texas Tech looked great in that game, but outside of Texas Tech, like there hasn't been any other, crazy dominant team in the Big 12 there. So you talk about Baylor and BYU being games in their schedule. I think those are winnable games. Will they be tough? Absolutely, but very much winnable games there. And as long as they can make it potentially to the Big 12 championship game, I think that Utah would take that as a success. So I'll go medium right there with you, but I wouldn't be too shocked if Utah doesn't really get cooked any further this season.
I think medium rare. Again, I don't think anybody had any grand, illusions that Utah was going to go 12-0. We talked about their schedule, what they have left, how manageable it is. Then get over the hump against Baylor. I think you guys both said we're looking at a team that's probably most likely has 2 or 3 losses at the most, probably in it until the end, possibly getting a Big 12 championship game berth. I think they have their whole season ahead of them still. I think they need to be disappointed in the way that they played against Texas Tech for sure. And like Alex said, kind of just really no spark, I guess is the right word. Never really got Dampier going. They have to be disappointed in the way they played and know they can't play that way the rest of the year. But I still think they're kind of anytime a team is still in control of their own destiny, which they are with Baylor and BYU, if they can win both those games, they're fine. So anytime a team still has, control over what it does and its ultimate, kind of resolution, then I'm not going to cook them too bad. So, like I said, I think we all have to agree that I think Texas Tech's really good. So, you never like to lose at home, but I'll go medium rare here as well because I don't think it's time to kind of, sound the alarms too much yet.
All right. And last but not least, Cottrell, I'll let you introduce him because you fought hard to get him on this grill this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Luke Fickell. And look, a big part of it is because I look at his tenure so far in Wisconsin. He's been there. He's got technically 4 seasons under his belt there. Really 3 since he's been named the head guy, fully there. But he's 15-15. They've only been bowl eligible one time. And that year they were bowl eligible, they were 7-5. Now, this Wisconsin team is known for being relevant in the mix. At 7-5, you're not ranked. You're not a ranked team to end the season. And Wisconsin is one of those schools in the Big Ten that even if they're not necessarily winning the conference, they're right there. Like, you would see Wisconsin in a ton of Big Ten championship games, especially before, they did away with the divisions there. So for me, I'm going to go medium well here. I think his seat is getting really hot there. And, Wisconsin will be in a spot where if they can't figure it out, Luke Fickell is going to be the guy to go. So at 2-2, especially, it's not just being 2-2, it's how you looked in the game against Maryland. So for me, I'm going to go medium well here because I do think Wisconsin will be looking for better.
I picked Maryland to beat Wisconsin. I think Maryland is an underrated team. But here's the thing. I'm looking at Wisconsin's schedule, and they may only finish the year with 2, maybe 3 wins on the whole year. They got Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, Indiana, Illinois, and then end the season with Minnesota. Like, that's all maybe 5 ranked.
Minnesota?
Yeah, all 5 ranked teams in the Big Ten are on that schedule. Michigan is on the road. Oregon is on the road. Indiana is on the road. Like, this is a tough schedule as far as Big Ten goes. And with his lack of success previously, and typically you could always count on Wisconsin having a top-notch run game. Like, that being kind of the focal point of Wisconsin is them being able to run the ball. And they haven't been able to do that under him. And so I feel like I'm going to have to put him at well done, not because of the loss to Maryland. As I see Maryland as what they are, and that's a better team than we're giving them credit for at this point in the season. But from what I see of this schedule, from what I've seen of Wisconsin, they'll be lucky to get to 4 wins this season. I think
Alex, you swayed me. I'm going to go well done as well. I left him on. I didn't check his internal temp. He's well done. I'm right there with you.
Bill, what do you think?
The bro is a hockey puck. He's cooked. If you throw him in a window, if you throw him out a window, he's going through the window. He's done. You mentioned the schedule. I don't know what the odds are. I would love to look them up. I think the odds are way higher than I think anybody would like. To Alex's point, they don't win another football game this season. Where's that Minnesota game at?
It is at Minnesota.
They might not win a football game the rest of the season. Listen, we've talked about Luke Fickell on the show before. I like Luke Fickell. That's the weird thing.
Same.
I think he got a raw deal at Ohio State, and I'm on record with that. He went to Cincinnati. I think he caught fire with that one special team with a bunch of, senior-laden kids that were there, had a really good team, made the playoff, made waves, kind of made himself a really hot name. He's gone to Wisconsin, and to Cottrell's point, he just really hasn't gotten it done. I feel like Wisconsin is so far away from what they used to be, to Alex's point, and I couldn't agree more with it. I always hated playing Wisconsin. They would come in with a little bit above average quarterback. They would have a stud running back. They'd have 5 just farm-bred, strong, huge offensive linemen.
Yep.
And you knew you were in for a battle every time you played them. And that's not what this team is anymore. I think Fickell has struggled to really get a quarterback on campus that he can build around. I think he's in trouble time-wise here. 4 years is always the magic number because you get one full, whatever your first class is, they go all the way through the system. And then your second and third classes are sophomores and juniors. That is really the litmus test of where you are as a coach. And he's I don't think you could say that he's, anywhere good. I think he's failed. I think Luke Fickell is that guy that is the classic prototypical tweener guy. I think he is I don't think he's a major power 4 type coach, but he could coach anywhere else. I feel like if you took the Big Ten, like he won't be successful at Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon. Maybe Washington. I mean, USC is a high-profile job, but I don't think Lincoln Riley's even done a good job there. But my point is, I think Wisconsin, in my opinion, was always kind of considered the upper echelon of the Big Ten, and I feel like they're firmly in the middle of the pack right now. And I don't think they can be happy with that, especially with the success they've had in the early 2000s. I would be shocked if he holds on to his job after this year. Like, I would really, really be shocked if he's not let go at the end of the season.
You heard it here first on Coast to Coast, cooked or not. I'm thinking he's fired. Bill's thinking he's fired. Cottrell, do you think what do you put his odds at as being head coach of Wisconsin at kickoff of 2026 season?
Oh, I think it's damn near impossible. I mean, I think just hearing their schedule, and I'm not this is crazy, but hearing their schedule, I think if he got bowl eligible, it would be a miracle, and they would keep him off of that. But at the same time, I'm also thinking that, damn, 6-6 does not cut it at Wisconsin. So, like, I really don't think there's a shot that he's the coach. He's the head guy at Wisconsin next year.
Yeah, Wisconsin's totally like a 7-5 minimum program. I got you. I'm just kidding. But no, I totally know what you mean. Like, each school like has like that minimum record. Like for Iowa, if Luke Fickell went 8-4 or
every year.
Ferenc, sorry, I said Fickell. I meant Ferenc. If he went 8-4 every single year, he would never lose his job. Like, I would be 100% happy with a 9-3 season every once in a while, 8-4 on the regular. At Oregon, you're going 8-4 3 seasons in a row. We're going to find someone else. Same with Michigan. Same with Ohio State. Like, you may be allowed one of those years.
Well, not Michigan. They'll let that guy go 8-4. Couple years.
But now we've gotten to the exciting part. I've had enough of the grill. It's getting hot. I'm starting to burn. My internal temperature is at medium rare right now. I'm just ready, and I'm pumped up for this week's games of the week. I know you guys are pumped too.
Of course.
All right. Well, we know which game we're doing last.
Yes, we do.
We're going to start in the bottom. We're going to start in the bottom right-hand corner here. Got USC. I think overachieving, maybe kind of just laying under the radar, winning, looking better doing it than they have. Definitely looking better than they have the last couple of years. Hosting an Illini team that is, I think if you said licking their wounds would be an understatement. I would assume the Illini come out looking a lot better this week after a very hard week of practice and a lot of I would not want to have been an Illini player this week. I'll put it that week in practice. Ranked 23rd still. Again, I mean, this has become a huge game now. Illinois loses. I think they're on the grill. I think it would be a huge blow to their playoff chances with what they have left still. This would be a big win for USC to kind of build a resume going into their bye week. And then I believe they play this week. They're off next week. And then I think we go out there. So that would be their next game, which will be another huge win. I guess the question here for me is, do we see the real Illinois team? And the bigger question, I guess, has Lincoln Riley finally turned the corner with the program?
I mean, that's a good question. And here's what I'm hearing. What I'm seeing that the Southern California region is finally starting to get excited about USC Trojan football again and playing at the Coliseum. Lincoln Riley's kind of hasn't really had the success they hoped for over the last few years. But this season, it feels like USC has the swagger back. Like I said, this team doesn't have the defense of the early 2000s team, but the offensive success really reminds me of the early peak 2000s Pete Carroll teams. Like I said, not the same defensively. So like I'm saying, like those early teams would still beat this USC team, but they're starting to get back a little vibe to them. And like I said, the game opened up at USC -1.5. Since Indiana's smackdown of Illinois last week, it went from 1.5 USC as a favorite to now 6.5 points at kickoff for Illinois versus USC. So that's kind of telling you that they're expecting USC's offense, and I'm expecting USC's offense to do what Indiana's offense did to them last week and to run up and down the field. I like what USC's offense is looking like right now. I wasn't very impressed with Illinois leading up to this Indiana game. I chose them to cover the spread as well last week, and they completely let me down. I have lost all faith in this Illinois team. I feel like the book is out on how to handle their offense. Stop the run first, force them into 3rd and long, and make Luke Altmaier beat you. And I don't know if he can beat this USC team. I don't think he can put up the 35-plus points it's going to take to beat this USC team. So, yes, here's the issue, though, and this is why this game is going to be close. USC has the 9:30 or the 9 a.m. game. So traveling more than 2 time zones away, and just like Oregon did against Northwestern, got the 9 a.m. noon kickoff game. Oregon came out against Northwestern flat. Oregon came out a little bit rusty. They did not move the ball well in the first quarter, and then they ultimately kind of took over the game. But they only won that game, was it 35-13? And the game should have been a much bigger blowout than that. But that traveling, the time difference, it does cause some effect. So I think that USC will start the game out slow, but I think USC is going to boat race Illinois. I think this is going to be like a 41-28 game, but I think USC covers and takes care of business.
41-28. I wouldn't call that boat racing, but
I mean,
with that said, though, I am on the opposite side of you on this one. I thought you were gonna take Illinois in this. Look, ultimately for me, I don't like what I'm already hearing from Lincoln Riley. It feels like built-in excuses. He's already talking about, I don't know why we have the latest game the previous week, and now we have to go across the country and play Illinois it's going to be 10 in the morning when we play them because they're in the central time zone. And obviously, like, we don't make our schedule, and like, woe is me. Like, that's how I feel listening to Lincoln Riley talk about this game being on their schedule. This is the top 25 opponent. I don't want to hear about your travel plans and what you have to do. We just beat I would say we just beat a good Michigan State team, and now we're focused on an Illinois team who we know is going to come in and give us our best shot because they got boat race in the game that they had last week. That's where my mindset would be. But just kind of sticking with that, I think Brett Bielema is such a good coach. That team is going to come out with their hair on fire. They're going to have that taste from the Indiana game in their mouth, and I think they're going to punch USC in the mouth to start off because of that time zone difference there. But the difference between an Oregon and Northwestern game and USC against Illinois is that Oregon is actually a good football team. USC has put up a ton of points to start the year, but they haven't played anybody. They're not really tested. And I don't care what your opinion is about Michigan State. When Michigan State at this point in the year is the best team you've played all season, that's going to tell me that you haven't played anybody. So I think Illinois is going to come in. They're going to be a focused bunch. I think they take care of business at home in this game against USC.
I'm really torn on this game because I do think from what I've seen USC so far, I think they're playing a lot better than they have the last couple of years. They actually have a legit front seven defensively, which I think has been the bigger key to their start than their offense has been. It's kept, it's gotten off the field when it has to. They're not giving up big play after big play after big play, and they're giving their offense a short field sometimes. They're giving their offense more chances with the ball. I agree with Cottrell. You joined the Big Ten. You knew there was going to be more travel. You didn't have any problem taking the money from the Big Ten and all those checks. Like you said, when everybody's got to travel out there, it's not a problem. Alex brought up a good point in the chat, earlier. Oregon had to do it last year. Everybody knew with this merger it was going to be more travel. Stop acting like you're getting on a train and it's a 4-day trip to Illinois and your kid's back's hurt. You're getting on a goddamn private chartered plane and flying to 3.5, 4 hours to Illinois. Stop the cry. Like, let's just full stop. Like I said, I would be shocked if Illinois did not have a very hard, focused, intense week of practice. I cannot see them coming out and playing again this week like they did against Indiana. That was, if there was never a foot up your ass kind of wake up call type situation, it was last week. 63-10 embarrassment on national TV that's a hell of a wake up call. But I think I have to go back to kind of what both you guys said earlier. I think if you can make Illinois one-dimensional and stop the run and know when Altmaier's going to throw the ball, I think that's how you beat Illinois. And I think USC's front seven is going to be able to do that. I think they're going to make Illinois be in predictable tendencies, predictable downs too often. I think USC comes to town and squeaks one out in Champaign. I really do.
Love it. Where to next, Bill?
I think we're going to stay at the bottom. I think the two up top just have more cachet for me. LSU traveling down to Ole Miss. LSU, I think we can all agree, is a little bit battle tested at this point. This is really going to be, for me, I think we're really going to see what Ole Miss is. Are they for real? Are they a legit contender this year? Is it possible that Lane Kiffin and his big mouth have just been flying under the radar and overlooked? Or are they for real? I think we're going to answer a lot of those questions here. So I know how I feel about this game. I have a feeling I know which way Alex will go because he just has his fanboy crush on Lane Kiffin. And I don't know how Cottrell's going to go. So I'm kind of curious to see breakdowns from both of you guys on this one.
Well, here's the thing, Bill. You think I'm going to go Ole Miss. And normally you'd be right. But here's the thing. Ole Miss 4-0, fresh off a shellacking of Tulane. Previously undefeated Tulane, 45-10. Here's my issue. So far this season, they've been fortunate enough to have two quarterbacks that can run the system and run it well. Austin Simmons obviously went down with an ankle injury in week 3. Trinidad Chambliss has kind of been running the offense since then. Had 307 passing yards, 112 rushing yards against Tulane. Both of them are true dual threat quarterbacks. And as far as Lane Kiffin is concerned, he's okay with just letting them compete it out, is what he said. Here's my problem, and I felt this way my entire life. If you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. And you can't compete. Like I said, you had 4 weeks to figure this situation out. You had 4 weeks of games that you could try out different offenses and see who is more efficient and see who should be your guy starting conference play. But this is game 1 of your season. This could also be the last game of your college football playoff hopes if you don't play this right. LSU's offense, this is a very beatable LSU team. Their offense has not looked as efficient or as deadly as it has in the past. I don't feel like Garrett Nussmeier, he looked great a couple weeks ago, but I don't feel like he has fully played up to his potential like we've seen him in the past. And I personally, if I'm Lane Kiffin, I am going with Trinidad Chambliss to quarterback this game, and I'm not making a switch to Austin Simmons at any point. I'm choosing one guy and rolling with that one guy, and I'm choosing Trinidad Chambliss in this game. The dude is a true dual threat, as is Austin Simmons. I like Trinidad's upside, a little bit oomph behind his arm, and I like his decision making when he gets out of the pocket. But I do have to, even though they're on the road, I have to go with LSU on this one. Not because I want to, because trust me, I don't want Brian Kelly to win this game. I want Ole Miss to win, but I trust the guy who's had a starting quarterback for the last 2 years. We know what to expect with them. We know what to impress. If you have a quarterback competition in game, that's when your quarterbacks start to make reckless plays. start to throw balls that they normally wouldn't because they want to make that impressive throw that's going to give them the job, and they take more risks than they need to. And I think one of those risks is going to be the reason why LSU wins this game.
So I am stunned because I picked this game on Wednesday. So it's not like I'm just going directly against Alex here, but I am rolling with Ole Miss in this one, and I am stunned. I just knew we were going to be on the same page on this one, Alex. Look, you can talk about having two quarterbacks, and I'm with you. I agree with the adage of having two is having zero. Trinidad Chambliss is the real deal, and I said this on Wire to Wire, and I'll say it here again. I got to watch a lot of him last year because I was big in following Division II football because I had a friend that actually coached at Valdosta State last year, and I got to watch Trinidad Chambliss play against Valdosta State in the national championship game at the D2 level, and that kid is absolutely incredible. A lot of people dubbed him as the D2 Lamar Jackson. So you talk about him being a true dual threat. He's a kid that can absolutely do it with his arm and with his legs. And I think that added dimension there for this Ole Miss team is going to be the difference in this one. I think really he was just looking for that opportunity, and he absolutely showcased what he could do in that game against Tulane. He did it with his arm. He did it with his legs. And I think this LSU team, while they are number 4 in the country and they do have wins over Clemson and Florida to this point in the season, I think they're borderline in that category of begging to get beat. I think they were giving Florida every single opportunity to stay in that football game and to take care of business, but they just couldn't get it done. I will tell you this. If you do that against this Ole Miss team, it will get ugly. So I like Ole Miss. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. This may be the most entertaining game of the weekend. I like Ole Miss in a high-scoring matchup, and I think they get I don't want to call it an upset because I believe they're actually favored in this one, but when you're ranked 13 and you got the number 4 team coming into town, like I do think that would be a little upset there. Maybe even the fans storming the field. I don't know.
I mean, you're definitely, if you win that game, you're definitely storming the field. So I was going to say, is this the next SEC fine to be handed down?
I think so.
Ole Miss in the Grove.
In the SIP.
Going to disagree, my friend. I think LSU comes to town and handles business. I think Nussmeier and them and company, I think they'll be able to move the ball against Ole Miss. I agree with you. I think Ole Miss is going to be, I think Ole Miss has showed glimpses of being explosive. That being said, it's been against lesser teams. I know a lot of people want to hang the Tulane game from last week, and Tulane was definitely one of those kind of group of 5 teams that I think had a chance to make it at the end, but still not an SEC team. It's not an SEC team, or an SEC defense. I think LSU has just been in enough big games already this year. I think they're going to be comfortable playing in a close game. I have no confidence, obviously, crunch time with either one of these coaches. This is literally the least confident, coaching matchup there could be for me in regards to coaching in the clutch. But that being said, I think Brian Kelly can stay out of the way enough for the LSU Tigers to pull off a close one. I believe Ole Miss is like a 1.5-point favorite in this game, but I like the Tigers. And I think they win. If not, it could be a very, I think we're calling it a mini upset, but I mean, that would definitely be a game that would shake things up if Ole Miss wins. So, obviously, we're going to go to the top right next with 2 teams that will be very interested in the outcome of that game, but have their own game to worry about. The Alabama Crimson Tide coming off a bye, traveling to the Georgia Bulldogs down to Sanford Stadium down in Athens, Georgia. How does Alabama Ty Simpson look coming off a bye? Does Georgia have that let down after that huge emotional win at Tennessee? I know which way I'm leaning on this one. I'm very curious to see how you guys break it down. and ultimately, obviously, who you pick. But I think one team is definitely better than the other. If that's going to translate to the final scoreboard, like I said, with everything going on, I'm not sure. I also don't, I really don't. I don't think Bama can afford another loss here. I think this is a way more. I'm not going to say important because Bama Georgia has become a huge rivalry the last decade. I just don't think it's the end of the road for Georgia if they lose. I think if Bama loses this game, their backs are against the wall. I think a lot of people are really going to start. I think those whispers about Kellen DeBoer are going to get a lot louder, and I think people are really going to start to kind of question if they hired the right guy or not. Cottrell, I'll let you go first on this one. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, so I think this game is very interesting, and I think that if you would have asked me how this game looks before the season, I think I may have had a completely different outlook. Neither of these teams' defenses have necessarily looked stellar against better competition. I saw what Georgia looked like against Tennessee in that game, and the defense gave up, a ton of points. And I saw what Alabama's defense looked like against Florida State, to start off the season here. So for me, I'm going to go with the group of guys who I ultimately just trust more and that I've seen not necessarily fold under the pressure there. I'm rolling with the Georgia Bulldogs. I think they are the more talented bunch there. I think that Gunnar Stockton, he looked adversity right there in the face in that Tennessee game and said, I'm here for it. And, I think even in the matchup against the SEC rival and Georgia and Bama here, I think I trust Georgia to make more plays in this one. So Nick Saban is no longer on that sideline. And, ultimately that was Kirby Smart's, biggest issue there. And even with that said, it's funny because DeBoer got the best of them last year, but I don't see that being the case this year. I like Georgia to get the win here and, give Bama their second loss of the season.
West Coast, break it down.
I have no faith in Ty Simpson or the Alabama offense right now. And I know that with what I watched, I at first had no faith in Georgia last week against Tennessee. I didn't think that they could really kind of keep up. Their offense couldn't keep up with what Tennessee's offense brought to the table. They go ahead. They proved us wrong last week, scoring 44 points and winning in overtime. And I don't believe Alabama can keep up with Georgia. I don't think this is going to be that 16-13 SEC, battle in the trenches, game-winning field goal type game. I think this is going to be a game where Georgia hits him in the mouth early, dominates the line of scrimmage from the word jump, and I think that they kind of take care of business. It's only 3.5 points on the spread, obviously with Georgia being the favorite there, being at home. I think this could be a 10-plus point game where Georgia totally dominates the line of scrimmage. Ty Simpson looks completely lost in this game, and the home field advantage really pays off. And I think Georgia, it's a nighttime game for them. I think that Georgia covers and takes care of business against Alabama, and next week we see Kalen DeBoer's face on the grill.
Interesting. I'm going to go with the Bulldogs here. I think the most important point for me, I think Cottrell hit on it. Gunnar Stockton, I think, is playing with a ton of confidence right now. Went into Tennessee, and to Cottrell's point, I don't think the moment was too big for him. Again, at the very end of that game, could have went, a multitude of different ways. Like Cottrell said, he kind of stared down the barrel and said, let's go. You win a big game like that, that is definitely a turning point type game for a kid that can make him go out and, play at ease, but also play with a lot of confidence. Ty Simpson is not the problem for me at Alabama. And I know everybody wants to put it on him. I think it's everything around him, if I'm being honest.
Agreed.
Mike Williams does not look like himself, or Ryan Williams does not look like himself. Sorry. But for me, I'm gonna go back to the unit that really, I'm gonna go back to the Florida State game. Defense has just not looked good. They've not looked aggressive. They have not looked physical. They've looked soft. I think you're going up against the Georgia offensive unit at home that's going to put points up on the board. I like Georgia. I think Georgia wins big. And again, I think the Kellen DeBoer conversation is going to get to a deafening pitch down in Tuscaloosa. Maybe he ends up on cooked or not cooked next week, but no foreshadowing there. But I think Alabama wins by at least double digits. Or sorry, Georgia wins by at least double digits. I think an offense is going to cook at home. And again, I think Ty Simpson will play well. And maybe they get Ryan Williams going. But again, for me, it's not going to be the offense. I don't think that defense is going to, show up and rise to the occasion against that Georgia offense. I think that's where they lose the football game. So I'm going with Georgia.
So speaking of double digits,
main event time.
I'm very curious to know.
Yeah.
Do you think Alex has the gall to say that Oregon is going to win by double digits against Penn State?
Oregon is going to win by double digits against Penn State.
You had to. You missed the build up. Bill left. I mean,
Look,
relax.
Look, it's
Bill. What's the over under? Because I remember last year, the Ohio State game. I think Alex was like, "Oh, we're going to win by 17." And I remember the year before against Washington, the first year we did the show, he was like, "Oh, we're going to beat Washington by 21." So what's the number? Under 13 and a half. You think he's going over or under that number?
That's a good number. Yikes. You know what? I'm see, I don't know if I want to say that. I think under our expert tutelage, Cottrell, I think Alex has reined in his crazy picks a little bit and learned from his mistakes and learned to be a little more conservative and be a better podcaster. So I'm going to take the under. That being said, he's probably going to say they're going to win 52-12. So I'm going to look like an idiot, but I'll put my faith in the young Jedi. I will. So I'm going to take the under. That being said,
no further ado. This all you, man. I just want to hear you.
Look, there's a lot of implications on this game. All right, Penn State's looking to get revenge for that Big Ten championship game last year, where they ran for just under 300 yards and still lost. I know it stings. I've been watching the clip of James Franklin bitching about the Oregon band playing in the background during his press conference all week, and it's got me just my juices flowing. Dan Lanning said it best. The reason that the whiteout is such a big game is because it's against Oregon. You could have made that game against anybody. The only reason that it's a whiteout now is because you're playing Oregon, and Oregon's here to play. We don't care about what you're ranked. We don't care about what you've done this season against top 6 teams. I know Cottrell's like, oh, this is a really weird stat to say. But against top 6 teams, Drew Aller completes less than 50% of his passes. This season, the offensive line has not protected him like we expected them to. Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, those are my biggest worries on Penn State's offense. And if they go out for 300 yards, I'm still confident that we're going to win because guess what? We managed to do it last year when it counted. People are talking all week about how the young Oregon Duck team traveling on the road against such a tough atmosphere for the very first time. That's an advantage. The Oregon Ducks youth, they don't know the situation they're walking into. They have chips on their shoulders. They are underdogs for the first time in a lot of their careers going into this game. And if that doesn't give you something to fight for, I don't know what does. The disrespect, give Penn State a 3.5-point favorite over the Oregon Ducks is absolutely crazy. Cottrell, you can look annoyed and bored all you want to. Dante Moore is going to take us home. He's playing 74% of his passes. He has not had to use his legs yet this year. This game, we will get to see what he's made of. DeCorian Moore, Malik Benson, Kenyon Sadiq, pick your poison. We're going to use all 3 of them to dismantle Penn State's defense. On defense, Bear Alexander, Mateo Uyunglele, Bryce Betcher. These guys are not young bucks. These guys are juniors and seniors who have seen it and been there. Autzen Stadium last year had a higher decibel point than Penn State's stadium ever did. So these guys have heard loud stadiums before. This is nothing. Control. You can roll your eyes all you want. Oregon is winning this game by 10+ points.
What's the number, though? What's the number? Not 10+. What's the number? Give
Well,
it to
see,
me.
you wouldn't put this. You can't tell me the spread beforehand. Now it's all tapered. But I'm going to say this is a 10-point game, at least.
Okay.
At least.
All right.
At least
10. So you were right, Bill. Under hit.
But hey, we only got like 5 minutes left. So, Cottrell, give me your pick.
I just don't understand how young kids playing in a hostile environment for the first time would be an advantage for them. Like that is ludicrous to me.
Because they got nothing to lose, man. They got nothing to lose. They don't.
No
know
one
the
ever has.
situation they're
If that's
walking
the
into.
case, no one ever has anything to lose. Like that. That's crazy.
No, you're going on the road in a whiteout as underdogs to a team ranked higher than you. You truly have nothing to lose. Leave it all on the field. When you're the higher ranked team at home with your whiteout, like you have all the pressure on you. The Ducks got no pressure.
I'll say that this is my breakdown here. That's no advantage for the team going into the whiteout. As a person that has owned James Franklin, we have absolutely owned Penn State in the James Franklin era. The one time that he has beaten us when we had to go on the road there in a night game, and it was the whiteout. It was the whiteout game. I'm telling you, the whiteout just hits different. I tried to tell you last year, you guys ultimately got the win against Wisconsin, but traveling to Wisconsin in the dead of winter in November is not an easy thing to do. I'm telling you right now, traveling up to Happy Valley, I know,
still
but
warm.
It's not a weather thing. I'm saying traveling to Happy Valley for a whiteout game is not an easy thing to do. And regardless of if you think it's an advantage for them or not, when you have a guy in Dante Moore who is making his 4th career start as a Duck, and you have a bunch of young guys, you talk about Decorian Moore, who I think is special, but that'll be his first time in a big time game at the collegiate level, and it's on the road. Like, I think you get into the idea of snap counts getting thrown off. You get into, not being able to hear audibles and things like that. Like, I think it's going to be a big time detriment for that Oregon team there. But I think Oregon's got a team full of ballers, man. I truly do. I think this is a really good group of guys over there at Oregon. With that said, though, I think this is I don't want to necessarily say lower scoring, but I think this is a tight game, really tight. I got Penn State squeaking out a close game. I'm going to go like 24-21. I can easily see this being a game that ends in a walk-off field goal.
Lame.
Bill.
What's up?
You got a couple minutes left. Oregon, Penn State. Who do you got?
So I was going to give my preview pretty straightforward here until Alex starts spewing some stuff that's crazy.
We only got like a minute 30 seconds, so you got to be kind of straightforward.
I don't care what the decibel level is in Austin Stadium when they're cheering for the home team. They cheer when you guys do things well. They allow you to hear things on the field, and when the offense has the ball, they're quiet. That is not going to be the case tonight. That place is going to be jumping every time you touch the ball. We've seen it over and over, dude, especially the first 2 possessions when everybody's at their highest pitch. You watch quarterbacks come out, they all tell you they can't hear a damn thing, dude. The offensive linemen can't hear. The wide receivers can't hear. You see miscues, blocking miscues when you try to change coverages or make an adjustment for blocking assignments. Nobody can hear. It's going to matter. So I know we're all joking around here and having fun, but at the same time, if you don't think that noise is going to affect the Oregon offense, especially at the beginning, you're fooling yourself. You're being naive. That being said, I shocked myself earlier in the week when I broke this down and decided who I was going to pick, especially with who I've picked to make the national championship game. But that being said, from what I've seen from Oregon and what I've seen from Penn State so far, I'm going to pick the Ducks. I'm picking the Ducks 27-21. Drew Aller and that offense have not looked good. And listen, there's a part of me that thinks they're just not running anything and they didn't want to show anything because they didn't have to against the teams they've played so far. And that will probably play into this game. I think Jim Knowles will also have a bunch of stuff ready to go and wrinkles that Dante Moore is not seen yet and stuff like that. I think that will factor into it. The one thing that Alex did bring up on a serious note that matters to me is I like Oregon's defense. I think Penn State has had success running the ball. I don't care which game you watch so far, though. Penn State's receivers are still struggling to get open. And if they're not getting open against Villanova and people like that, they are not going to run around wild in an Oregon secondary with a lot of experience. I'm sticking with the Ducks 27-21. I think it's a huge win for Oregon. I also think this is kind of a turning point for Penn State, where we see a different team the rest of the year. So that's what I'm going with. I'm going with Oregon. If they let me down, they'll be dead to me, and I'll just be on here next week blasting them for being the non-national champion winners that they are.
Jeez. Well, hey, losing early last year helped Ohio State, so you never know. But that's the previews. Let's take a look at the Mountain real quick. Pick them out the way, and let's go watch some football.
Absolutely.
So here's the Mountain. Illinois.
Good. I have no complaints.
Illinois is being taken away right now. They're in the helipad. They're getting the bruises. And unfortunately, they got USC this week. And I think, hey, if USC beats Illinois this week, USC might have to get a hitch a ride with the helicopter up to the mountain to join these guys on the mountain, because USC will then be, I think, a serious contender if they can pull it out against Illinois later today. Or actually, technically right
Definitely up to date and accurate now, at least.
Yeah,
Perfect.
you're welcome.
I like it. It looks good. Only thing I want for next week, Alex.
Wait a minute. I thought we were getting tombstones this week.
We're not putting tombstones on it. Not yet. It's too early.
I want a
did that last year.
Tombstone. We need a Clemson tombstone.
It's not over for them yet either.
It's over for Clemson and Kansas State. Tombstone.
It's not over yet. I did that last year with Notre Dame, and they went to the national championship. Okay, after they lost to Northern Illinois. Right. I'm not doing it early this year.
3 losses is a lot different than 1 loss to a really bad school.
But in the era we live in, when you only have 2 conference losses and 6 more conference games to go in the Big 12, you could still make that conference championship game. If they get a 3rd conference loss, I will give them a tombstone.
I can't believe we're not giving Clemson. I can kind of understand. I cannot believe we haven't given Kansas State a tombstone.
Whatever. Put up our pick-up numbers and let's get this show on the road. I'm going to watch the football.
Alex, you are leading the group. Both
everything.
Sides.
In everything. It feels good. It feels good to just know. It's how you know that I know ball. Okay.
Not for much longer here, pal. Not for much longer.
Well, hey, do we want to? You want me to bust through picks really quick, and then?
I know we're at time here. I'd usually like to give you your time because we get ours out the way. Bill didn't really go on. I'll just get mine out the way here quick, and I'll let you guys figure out what you want to do there. So mine are pretty straightforward here. I got Ohio State -7.5 at Washington. I think Ohio State is going to take care of business, and people are thinking this is the sexy, trendy pick for the upset. I'm not buying it. I like Ohio State. I think the game's tight though. Next game, I like Tennessee -7.5 at Mississippi State. I don't think Mississippi State is as good as their Arizona State win makes them out to be. I like them to cover that -7.5 number there. Last game, I like the over 47.5 BYU at Colorado. I think both teams will be able to score, move the ball a ton there, and get that over 47.5 number to hit there. And then for my super dog, I have Oklahoma State +20.5 at home versus Baylor.
All right. Well, Bill, do your picks real quick while we have you.
All right. Real quick, I'll give you all the winners for the week. Just because you guys asked nicely. First one, TCU at Arizona State. Arizona State -2.5. I think TCU is off to a good start. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, I think Arizona has finally kind of got their heads out of their asses. Big win at Baylor last week. Big win the week before. Almost, finished off the miracle comeback in Mississippi State. they're playing a lot different now. I think at home, I think they take care of TCU. Next, LSU plus 1.5. I already mentioned it earlier in the show. I'm taking LSU outright in that game, but I'll take the 1.5. Why the hell not? Lastly, Tennessee -7 at Mississippi State. Coming off the heartbreak loss, Mississippi State is obviously playing better this year than I think a lot of us. I mean, we didn't practically even mention them in the preview. But Tennessee, I think with Joey Aguilar, I think they get back on the right side of things. They go to Starkville. I think they get a big win on the road. I think I like them to cover there big time. And then Superdog, Baylor at Oklahoma State. Taking a flyer on this one. There wasn't many games to pick from this week, honestly, with Superdog stuff. Oklahoma State, new coach, interim coach. Kids come out and play hard. Baylor's a little bit banged up. Like I said, coming off another loss. Who knows? Maybe I steal some points. Maybe Oklahoma State loses by 63. I don't know what could happen there. But I'm going to go. That's my Superdog pick for the week.
Well, I'll get this over with quickly so you can watch some football. Cottrell, I'm picking directly against you. Washington's covering that plus 7.5 against Ohio State. In fact, they have won 22 straight home games. This is a dangerous team at home. They have one of the best non-quarterbacks in college football. It was Jonah Coleman. It's 500 all-purpose yards and 10 touchdowns in just 3 games this season. Washington not only is going to cover that 7.5-point spread, I have them winning the game against Ohio State. Moneyline status. So take that to the bank. Then got South Carolina -5.5 versus Kentucky. Lenore Sellers looked fantastic last week. If they would have just had a rushing attack to go along with those passing yards, the game would have been a lot different. Kentucky is not going to be able to slow South Carolina's run game down, and Lenore Sellers is going to really take off because they cannot lose another game if they want to make the college football playoff. 5.5 points is not big enough for that game against Kentucky. This one, I don't know too much about the teams. My gut was screaming at me for this one. Western Kentucky -4.5 at Missouri State. I like Western Kentucky in this spot. 4.5 points seems like a gimme pick. Maybe Vegas knows something, but my gut was screaming at me to take this one. And then for a Superdog, Boise State has not impressed this year. And a team that always impresses and always steps up in big situations is Appalachian State. Appalachian State plus 16.5 at Boise State for my Superdog. Book it. I'm the king. I'm current leader. So trust my picks and place those bets, people.
Yeah, that's
it.
I actually liked all of your picks outside of the Ohio State Washington game there. So I'll give you kudos.
Sneaky watch today. I think it'll be an interesting game. Again, I mean, we talked about it with all the other quarterbacks. I think, Julian going on Washington, not an easy place to play. His first kind of real true, road game. I'll be curious to see how he reacts, but I still think Ohio State comes out with a dub, but I'll be curious to watch that game. I'll leave it at that. Anything else for you two fine gentlemen? We only went 8 minutes over, but we had a way better preview segment this week. So
no, I'm gonna go watch some football. I'm excited.
I'm ready to rock and roll. I'll see you guys next week after the Ohio State win.
Good. We out. See everybody next week. Good luck to all your teams. Good luck with all your picks. Thank you for watching. As always, like, smash, share, all that good stuff. But as always, thank you for tuning in, hanging out with us for a couple hours, and we will see everybody next week.